Hey guys, so I wanted to come on here and talk to you about this past week, what's all been going on. It's been about 10 days since I think we did the last one, and I wanted to kind of give you an update. So, I went to the normal meeting, it was great. Annie and Heather Fazio spoke. Annie Epley spoke about her late husband who passed away from a blood clot in his from a blood clot that they didn't find until after the autopsy, and because they were convinced it was something else, they wouldn't listen to the medical to other doctors, and a lot of it stemmed from abuse and from drug abuse, and her husband not able to grasp the concept that marijuana is not that a drug that you need to stay away from. It's not one of those abused drugs that we see like heroin or any of that stuff. It can be used to heal. And Heather came on board to talk about legislation and what's going on in the future. So we really appreciate both of them coming on, especially Annie telling that heartbreaking story about her husband. And then after the two ladies spoke, another lady got up and spoke about her son, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But first, I want to talk about Heather Fazio and what she was able to speak about in regards to legislation coming up in 2019. So people ask all the time, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? And this is one of the biggest things you can do, because there's several bills that are coming up. We don't know how they're going to portray. And whenever we get information and updates about bills and what bills would be best, we're going to let you know. We'll get on board here and talk to you, give you some fine points. Then what your job is to go to Ballotpedia or wherever to find out who your elected officials are, especially the new ones that are coming in. Request a time to go in and talk to them face to face, and be prepared to have at the Texans for medical marijuana, for responsible medical marijuana. Sorry, Heather, I completely butchered that. If you go to their Facebook page, you can find all sorts of information on how to approach the politicians. And when they say how to approach them, it's not like they're going to be scary or anything like that, but there's a way to present an argument, a political argument to them, so that they can vote more favorably in our direction. And I would highly suggest everybody go out and do that, because I know I will. I will be visiting Julie Johnson and a bunch of the newer elected officials to talk to them about cannabis reform here in Texas. That being said, so please go out and do that. If you have any questions or need websites or something like that, ask me in the comments, and I'll see what I can do about finding that information for you. This leads me to the third lady who came up and spoke. The third lady who came up and spoke was tugged at my heartstrings, and I'm going to tell you why. Her son had committed suicide about 30 days ago, a little over a month. And what had happened was that he was in Colorado working on a farm, and he had been using since 18 cannabis to help with a lot of his medical issues that he had. And some of them were internal digestive issues, and could cause losing control of bladder and things of that nature. It could cause some embarrassing situations. And because Texas wasn't open to medical marijuana, he could not be here around his family in a support group. He had to leave his support group and go up to Colorado so that he could learn and he could grow and he could get the proper medicine. Once he started using cannabis, he decreased his medical need for pills and everything else, and a lot of his symptoms and issues got dramatically better. But he encountered bullying up there. And so this is something I think people don't talk about. It's not just refugees leaving to go from one state to another state. Sometimes they're leaving a support group just to be able to survive physically. They leave that support group to go somewhere else and get involved with the medical program up there, but they don't have that full support group like they had back at home. And sometimes, and a lot of times, to heal, you need that both. You need the combination of the medicine, and you need the combination of the support group to come together. And that's very important. I was very moved by it. I will show you this. This is who it is. Right there. Matthew Dylan Anderson. In the back it says, "Thank you for joining us in celebrating the life of Matthew Dylan Anderson. Let us now honor him by sharing the precious memories we have to remember him by. We'd like to use this time to pray, share stories, and celebrate his life in music and song. The acts of kindness done, the gentleness shown, and the love we always felt that will stay with us always." And so this was what touched me about this. This was a mother who had the courage to stand up in front of a whole bunch of people that she doesn't know, that are advocating for a plant that they believe will change a lot of people's lives, and she wished it would have happened here, so she would have had that support group for him. She wouldn't have lost her son. Very emotional. It was hard for her to get up and talk about something like this, and that to me shows even more support about what we're trying to do as activists in this industry. It's very difficult when somebody who knows nothing about cannabis, who never had a need to study it, had a need to look into it, or was ever really around it, for them to go from an onslaught of prohibition ads all the way to now, and in a blink of an eye say, no, it's completely fine, they were all wrong. It's hard for them to accept that as true. So we as activists have to continue to do the education. So one of the other things people say, well, what can we do? We can start doing more educational programs right here in Texas, just talking about the plant in general. People have questions, and this is a place for you to come and ask questions and get those answers. That way, they start pushing. Then you start pushing the bills that are on the agendas, and you give them information to their prospective representatives so they can go talk to them. So this is very important stuff that we're doing. And so I want to really advise people to get involved locally, even city council wise, talking about the decriminalization bill and how it'll affect the city council and how they plan on implementing that. It's all extremely important, especially if it does get passed. Every city has to be able to implement those. So we'll see how that works out. Now, I would like to go on to something different. I want to go on to, I had a couple of people call me this past week in regards to how to get into the cannabis industry. I think I get that question more than any other question. I get more, probably the second one would be, where do you grow and strains that you have and things of that nature. In everything that we have is up here in Maine. So a lot of our strains are developed up there in Maine in our licensed and legal cannabis company. So how I got involved with it was by luck. It was an opportunity, and I took that opportunity. It was risky, and I just took the opportunity. So there's that aspect of it. You can get into it that way, by opportunity. If you see it, take it. The other way to get into it is if you want to develop something on your own and something that's unique. And like I said before, this is something I believe what works. This is not the way to do it. There's no the way to do anything. There's several ways to do everything, right? There's always, my dad used to say, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. Sorry, cat lovers. But I believe that there's many ways to be successful in this industry, many different avenues to create this, but I'm just going to talk about the basic principles when you are entering into this industry that you should think about. Okay, one of the biggest things is that you're going to want to find out what it is that you are good at doing. Okay, everybody's good at something, right? If you're a glass maker, there you go. You can make pipes and everything else. If you are a horticulture and you've been growing and farming forever, well, then your niche there is probably going to be growing. So if you've never grown before, and you don't know much about it, you always want to, you love the industry, you're recreationally smoking it every once in a while, or you may take CBD pills and you really want to get into the industry, what do you do? What is it that you're doing now that you're really good at? But it's not the work you don't mind. Let's say the work you don't mind at all, but you may not like the company or you may not like the industry, right? What you're doing is you're finding out exactly your skill set. Write it down, the things that you do. You manage teams in an industry where you're a parts manager and you're watching the flow of inventory coming in and out. Are you a person who's a warehouse manager? Are you an accountant? Are you a CPA? These are things that you can do. What you do is you develop a business plan around your skill set that you're good at. Something that you can either create or give for a price that you can return with a value. Right? That's what you're trying to do. So if you have a good strong suit with computers and you think a data tracking system is something that could be useful, then that's what you should probably do. You should probably do the data tracking system, or set up some kind of, or get involved in that sub element of this industry and figure out more about it. So find out your strong suits. That's going to be one of the biggest things. And then develop that business plan. Okay, if you want to do a dispensary because you've been in retail your entire life and you know how to run a retail store, like a craft store or a shop of some sort, take that skill set, develop a retail store, and then apply the cannabis model to it. So you would know that the transactions are going to be very similar. The principle of transactions will be similar. It's just going to be cash. Money to you, you return the cash back to them. You have to log it. You have to, file it away, make it a bank deposit. All those things still have to happen. So make sure you understand the workflow, the product knowledge, the inventory upkeep, the shortage upkeep, what you're going to get, the security that you would have on a normal retail store, you're going to have on a cannabis store. It's going to be more. It's going to be a lot more, but you're still going to have that element. So when you finally get your business plan down, apply the aspect of the cannabis laws to it. What it is you're selling, how you obtain it, where you obtain it, is my store in regulations, is the security within regulations and or more, because trust me, you don't want that happening. So you can you apply the cannabis aspect to it last once you kind of figure out exactly how that business structure is going to operate. Right, because that's going to be the biggest thing. Having a product's very important. If you're wanting to do a t-shirt company and you want to sell t-shirts, first understand the nature of the t-shirt business first. Especially if you don't have any experience in the t-shirt industry, get some knowledge on that industry first, and then apply the cannabis side to it. Because every time when you apply the cannabis side to it, you go from a very open population of customer base to a very narrow customer base, right? So, I don't just hire veterans I'm looking to just do things for veterans. This is medicine for everybody. My personal drive to help out veterans is one thing, and I'll do stuff to help veterans, and I'll always have something within my company that's going to do something to help veterans out. But my product and what I supply and what I do is for everybody, anybody who wants to buy and consume it. So I don't want to narrow it down I can only narrow it down so much, right? Because everybody needs to drink water, but everybody's going to want to smoke weed. So my customer base has narrowed down, and you need to understand that when you do this, your customer base will narrow down, because only so many people are going to buy shirts with pot leaves on it, or so many people are going to want to have a CPA who only specializes in cannabis. Only so many people who are going to want certain things that only deal with cannabis if they're within that industry. So the base model of a CPA firm, a lawyer firm, whatever, is going to need to be there first, and then you apply the cannabis mode to it next. And that way you have a good understanding of what you want to do in this industry. And it takes some time, it takes a lot of planning. You're going to make mistakes and everything else, but that's going to happen anyways. It's going to be afterwards. But as far as how do I get into this industry, what is your skill set? What do you currently do that you've been doing for years, and you're good at, and they pay you decent at? And how do if I couldn't go off and start my own business doing what I'm doing now, what would it be? And really use that. Don't say I've been in IT my entire life, I want to go grow weed. Okay, have you ever grown weed? No. It's not as easy as you think it is. Growing is labor, not only just labor intensive, requires a lot of experience to grow well. Because anybody can grow weed, but it takes great people to grow great weed. And you'll hear that quite a bit when you start talking to a lot of the growers out there who have a ton of experience doing their own genetics and things of that nature. They're going to tell you it's difficult to grow good stuff, and they love other people's genetics, so they look for specific aspects of their genetics. They look for certain types of grows, and growers like to communicate that way. And it's to be a part of that just takes time. And if you're willing to put in the time, there's nothing wrong with that. But be careful. Don't jump into something that you've never done before just because it's a new, exciting industry. Because this new, exciting industry is going to have a lot of fallout, like any other industry will. So that's what I have so far, guys. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments, and I'll see what I can do to answer them. Other than that, you guys have a great day.